What if one missile could change the balance of global power in under 5 minutes? When Iran unleashes the new generation Sejjil ballistic missile, it tears through the sky and through Tel Aviv's defenses, leaving the world in shock. But this isn't just a strike. It's a statement. Secrets, retaliation, and silence follow. Stay to the end, because the real threat isn't what hits, it's what waits. Welcome back to our channel. A place where you will find a collection of stories full of wisdom and inspiration. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss out on other interesting stories. And don't forget to write the name of your hometown in the comments section. Let's start the story. The desert night in central Iran was so quiet you could hear sand shifting like whispers beneath boot heels. Deep in a fortified military base surrounded by tall radar towers and satellite dishes, a red digital clock began its final descent, T-259. Inside the command center, tension was armor-plated. General Soroush Rahmani stood over a steel table cluttered with launch codes and tablet screens. The man hadn't smiled in 15 years, not even when his grandson called him Baba Boom by accident. The new pride of Iran's missile program, the Sejjil 5, rested deep underground in its vertical silo. This wasn't just another long-range ballistic toy for posturing. This was a serpent with teeth. Solid-fueled. Hypersonic. Cloaked under radar signatures. The Iron Dome. It would struggle to swat a fly compared to this. Target locked, Tel Aviv Sector 4A through 12C, the technician reported. God forgive us, someone whispered. Rahmani turned. God gave us brains, and missiles came after. Coincidence? A light chuckle ran through the room, but quickly vanished, swallowed by the hum of anticipation. Then the code was punched in. Launch key inserted. Rotated. Authorization confirmed. A faint tremble ran under their feet. And far beneath the surface, a rumble turned into a roar. The earth exhaled fire. The Sejjil 5 tore through its vertical shaft, erupting upward with a fury that cracked the night sky open. A column of flame chased it, slicing into the heavens like a blade of vengeance. All Tehran held its breath. In Tel Aviv, most people were just finishing dinner. Israeli airspace is normally a buzzing beehive. Drones, recon flights, radar scans every 3 seconds, and the Iron Dome always half awake like a caffeine-fueled night guard. But that night, something felt off. Sir, something's entering the radar net from the northeast, Mach 6.7 and accelerating. General Elon Becker looked up from his midnight snack, a bowl of pickles and hummus. He frowned, mostly because he had just dropped one on the floor. Mach what? 6.7, sir. That wasn't a missile, that was a meteor with an attitude. The radar screen lit up like a Hanukkah parade gone rogue. The Iron Dome systems kicked in, scrambling to calculate intercepts. But the Sejjil wasn't just fast, it was clever. It danced at high altitude, changed trajectory mid-flight, and dropped countermeasures that confused the dome's algorithms like a toddler trying to solve quantum physics. The defense techs were typing so fast the keyboards cried for mercy. 12 Tamir interceptors launched. 2 are veering off. 6 just missed. We've got a problem. Becker stared at the display. That's not a missile. That's a ghost with a grudge. Above Israel, the Sejjil 5 curved downward like a predator diving in for the kill. Its nose glowed white-hot, its final stage spinning open like the jaw of a snake. Inside were multiple sub-warheads, each programmed with independent guidance. Tel Aviv never saw it coming. It began with a crack, not thunder, not even close. It was the kind of sound that made windows shiver before they shattered. The first impact hit a district near the business towers. A seismic boom swallowed the skyline. A steel and glass skyscraper folded into itself like a kicked-over Lego tower. Fire roared from below. Car alarms tried to scream but were choked off by the next explosion. The second warhead landed on a logistics hub, sending shipping containers flying like toy blocks into the Mediterranean. And then came the wave. Not water, but a shockwave so fierce it peeled asphalt, bent lampposts, and tossed people like leaves in a typhoon. Ambulances flipped. Sirens wailed. Cell towers blinked out. Residents who had seconds earlier been live-streaming the strange light in the sky were now running for their lives. Phone cameras still rolling, mouths open in disbelief and terror. Is that a nuke? someone screamed. No, it's worse. It's precision carnage. The Iron Dome still fired. Tamirs arced overhead in a desperate, almost poetic ballet, but too late, too clumsy. The sky was already bleeding fire. One cafe owner named Doran, hiding behind his espresso machine, muttered, "Great. I just cleaned the place." He ducked as glass flew across the counter. Meanwhile, in bunkers across the city, politicians tried to scream over each other in secure lines. Where did it come from? How did it get through? Why was the intelligence blackout? And finally, who's going to clean this mess up? A new crater smoldered near the heart of the city. The streets were no longer streets, just torn veins on a scorched body. Above it all, the last warhead split mid-air and rained infrared-triggered bomblets, each one designed to seek out heat signatures. Cars, transformers, solar panels, kaboom. The night sky became a gallery of firework hell. Israel's most defended city was now an open wound. And the world? Watching in real time. Inside a sleek war room bunker buried beneath a Tel Aviv suburb, now mostly rubble, Israeli cyber defense chief Naomi Erez stared at a dead monitor. No telemetry. No uplink. No satellite feed. No Wi-Fi. A young analyst named Dory nodded grimly. I think even my smartwatch gave up. The Sejjil's final payload had done more than blow up half the city. It had fried the spectrum grid. Signals jammed, frequencies scrambled, communication paralyzed. The very air buzzed with electronic tinnitus. Drones lost their way and crashed into buildings that were no longer there. Israel's famed digital fortress had been turned into a confused soup of static. Where the hell is the Prime Minister? Naomi snapped. He's in a motorcade heading to an undisclosed bunker, someone replied. Undisclosed to us, apparently. Overhead, the smog of ash rolled like a new weather system. It didn't rain, but a drizzle of carbon, glass particles, and powdered concrete turned the city into a gray hallucination. The Israeli people weren't just shocked, they were furious. How did this happen? Became the new chant across emergency shelters and Twitter feeds. And somewhere in northern Israel, a famous comedian tweeted, Iron Dome needs a software update. Maybe next time try turning it off and on again. The tweet got 40,000 likes before the servers went dark. Back in Tehran, the mood was almost awkwardly celebratory. Not wild. Not flags in the streets chaos. But controlled, strategic victory. In a secure situation room, high-ranking officials gathered, their expressions a mixture of pride and we just kicked a hornet's nest anxiety. General Ramani stood at the center, his fingers drumming lightly on a metal briefcase, the one that had once carried the launch protocol. Preliminary satellite images confirmed direct hits, said one of the officers. Multiple grid sectors collapsed. Iron Dome response was ineffective. Ineffective, Ramani echoed. That's the nicest way I've ever heard they got smacked. Someone dared to chuckle. Only a little. Meanwhile, Iranian state media rolled the story with impressive theatrics. Operation Sky Talon, Iranian precision missile evades Zionist shield, blared across every screen. In tea houses across the country, old men nodded slowly while sipping sweet black tea. Kids reenacted the launch with water bottles. And social media flooded with memes of the Sejjil, 5 wearing sunglasses, cruising past the Iron Dome like a Hollywood hero in slow motion. Was this wise? A younger aide whispered. Ramani turned. Wise? No. Inevitable. Tel Aviv built its walls too high. So we taught them the sky has no walls. And beneath his stern voice, a bitter truth lingered. The missile was only the message. The real war had always been ideological. Tel Aviv by sunrise looked like a city after a bar fight with a god. Streets cracked. Smoke twisted like dark prayers into the sky. Emergency sirens wailed in rhythm, creating a soundtrack of despair. But human beings are strange creatures. We panic, we cry, and then, we start sweeping. Volunteers appeared with gloves and masks. Paramedics ran on caffeine and pure willpower. An old man handed out dates and pita bread to rescue workers. Even Doran, the cafe owner, reopened with a half-destroyed espresso machine and a hand-drawn sign. Coffee still works. No promises on milk foam. The Sejjil's message was clear, but the interpretation? Not so much. In Washington, politicians debated military retaliation over catered shrimp platters. In Brussels, diplomats held emergency meetings that mostly involved repeating unacceptable into microphones. In Moscow, silence. In Beijing, polite concern. And in Tel Aviv, the survivors asked quieter questions. Where were we vulnerable? Is this the beginning? Why did my daughter know it was coming before the news? Because that was the twist. Some private networks had picked up chatter. A whisper. A ping. A strange energy pattern hours before the Sejjil broke the sky. And the question now wasn't just what happened. It was, what else is in the pipeline? In a darkened NATO Situation Room outside Brussels, a holographic globe floated above a circular table like a crystal ball of doom. Military advisors from half a dozen countries sat around it, tired, caffeinated, and equally horrified. Someone pointed to a red arc traced from Iran to Tel Aviv. That, said General Stokes of the UK, was a ballistic slap in the face. Correction, replied a French officer, it was precision surgical humiliation. American Rear Admiral Langley chimed in, and we let it happen while watching cat videos on YouTube. Nobody laughed, except the German who chuckled once, then coughed awkwardly. Worse still, an Israeli reconnaissance satellite, the Zamir 6, had gone silent 30 minutes before Sejjil 5 launched. Some believed it had been hacked. Others thought it was intentionally spoofed into thinking everything was fine. Either way, the eyes in the sky had been plucked before the first fireball ever hit Tel Aviv. That's when word arrived. Iran had just moved 4 more Sejjil-class missiles onto mobile launchers. One was parked near the Caspian. Another was rolling through the Alborz Mountains. A third was missing entirely from the maps. The room went silent. Then Langley said, if this is a chess game, we're playing blindfolded, and they've got a flamethrower for a queen. Deep beneath Jerusalem, inside an undisclosed military-grade panic room equipped with 6-inch titanium walls and a built-in espresso machine, Israel's prime minister was having what polite people would call a moment. He paced. He yelled. He pulled at his hair like it owed him answers. How did this happen? I was assured. Assured. Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 3, we have more shields than a Marvel movie. Defense Minister Levi, who hadn't slept in 34 hours, rubbed his temples. Sir, the Sejjil isn't just a missile. It's a very smart, very angry computer with jet fuel. And we didn't see it coming because we were too busy looking at what we thought were threats, not what they actually were. The Prime Minister barked, so what do you suggest? That we tweet at them? Hey, please stop blowing us up. No, sir. I suggest we strike back. A long pause. And what would we hit, Minister Levi? A mountain? A desert? A sheep farm in Isfahan? Levi pulled out a folder. We still have options. But the truth was, every option looked like a bad idea wearing a tie. Full retaliation might trigger regional war. Limited strikes might look weak. Doing nothing made them look neutered. Then came the final blow, literally. A secondary explosion in southern Tel Aviv. One of the bomblets had buried itself under a fuel depot and detonated hours later, leveling 3 more blocks and sending fireballs into the already broken sky. The Prime Minister didn't say a word. He just slumped into the nearest chair and whispered, what if this is just the dress rehearsal? High in the Zagros Mountains, a convoy crawled along a cliffside road as narrow as a lie under oath. At its center, a camouflaged missile truck, carrying what appeared to be the Sejjil 6 prototype. This one wasn't just hypersonic. It had adaptive terrain masking, real-time evasive maneuvering, and the unsettling ability to alter course mid-flight, without external commands. Its nickname, painted in Persian calligraphy near the warhead cone. Sar, cockroach. Because, as the engineers said, it can survive anything and shows up where it's not wanted. Inside the lead vehicle, Colonel Dariush smoked a clove cigarette and watched the road with dead serious eyes. His lieutenant asked, do you think they'll strike back? They will, Dariush said. Like a wounded dog. Angry, loud, and likely to bite the wrong leg. Far below them, The world burned and blamed and blinked at each other in televised summits. But up here? Strategy, timing, patience, and a missile so smart it could probably write its own apology letter, after impact. 3 days after the Sejjil strike, Tel Aviv was no longer a city, it was a wound that hadn't clotted yet. Entire districts cordoned off. Satellite footage looked like war photography. Drone shots revealed scorched roads, collapsed towers, and a skyline that looked as though someone had taken a giant fist and punched downward. Emergency broadcasts looped non-stop. Stay indoors. Avoid exposed power lines. Do not drink tap water. Hug your kids. Or at least tell them this isn't normal. Funeral prayers echoed from rooftop to rooftop. Foreign journalists wore masks not for dust, but to hide the disbelief on their faces. And amid the rubble, one image went viral. A young boy barefoot, dragging a broken Iron Dome interceptor shell like a toy behind him. Someone added a caption. Even superheroes miss sometimes. Tehran. Again. In Iran, General Ramani didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just stood by a large paperless screen showing footage of global protests, oil price spikes, and 10,000 blinking dots of international outrage. We shook the hornet's nest, his aide said quietly. No, Ramani replied. We kicked it in the face and asked if it wanted another. But what came next wasn't cheering. It was silence. Strategic silence. Because Iran hadn't fired the rest. The Sejjil 5 was meant as a statement, not a series. The others? Parked. Hidden. Ready. But idle. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. The world wasn't reacting to what had happened, it was reacting to what might come next. The world reacts poorly. The UN held emergency meetings where nothing got done, mostly because half the delegates couldn't stop yelling and the coffee ran out. The EU issued a 30-page condemnation with 5 footnotes and no action. America deployed naval assets to the Gulf while also arguing about budget approvals. A new term trended on global forums. Sejjil syndrome, the idea that the next war wouldn't be won by the army with the most tanks, but by the side with the first truly unpredictable, uncounterable, game-changing weapon. And that weapon had already landed. And yet, despite the chaos, humanity does what it always does after getting slapped by fate, it moves on. In Tel Aviv, power crews rewired the city's skeleton. Bakers returned to blackened ovens. Schools opened in underground shelters. Teenagers, unfazed as ever, made memes. One showed the Sejjil, 5 wearing sunglasses and dodging Iron Dome interceptors like Neo from the Matrix, captioned, "Catch me if you can, Dome Boy." The joke stung, but the truth was worse. The balance of fear had shifted. For decades, Israel's defensive systems had been legend. Now, they were legend, asterisked. And everyone, governments, militaries, civilians, looked toward the horizon differently. Because somewhere out there, another Sejjil sat in silence, waiting. Not threatening. Not shouting. Just waiting. And that's scarier than war itself.